Yo, welcome to my channel. If you're into fun, creative, and sometimes a little bit crazy content, then this is definitely your kind of place. I'm here to entertain, share good vibes, and bring you something different every time. Hit that subscribe button and come be part of the fun.
The moment I knew my marriage was over wasn't when I found the hotel receipt. It wasn't when I saw the texts. It was when my wife looked me dead in the eye, standing in our kitchen wearing a dress I'd never seen before and said, "You should have tried harder, Marcus." That sentence burned worse than any fire I'd ever walked into. And trust me, I've walked into plenty. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm a firefighter. Been one since I was 22. Station 14 inches Cedar Falls, just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. It's not glamorous work. The pay is decent, but not great, about $51,000 a year after 12 years on the job. You don't become a firefighter for the money. You do it because something inside you needs to run toward the thing everyone else is running from. My father was a firefighter. His father was a firefighter. It's in the blood, like a disease you're proud to carry. I met my wife Rachel at a friend's barbecue when we were both 24. She was a second-grade teacher at Ridgemont Elementary. Pretty smart, laughed at my terrible jokes. We dated for 2 years and got married at the little church on Pine Street where her grandmother used to sing in the choir. The wedding cost us $6,000, most of it going to the caterer because Rachel's mother insisted on real tablecloths. I didn't care. I would have married Rachel in a parking lot. For 8 years, things were good. Not perfect, nobody's marriage is perfect, but good. We bought a small 3-bedroom house on Maple Drive for $162,000. The roof leaked when it rained hard, the basement flooded every spring, and the furnace sounded like a dying animal, but it was ours. I fixed things on my days off. Rachel painted the walls and planted flowers in the front yard. We had a routine. Tuesday night was taco night. Sundays we'd go to her parents for dinner, and every Friday I'd bring home a 6-pack. And we'd watch whatever terrible reality show she was into that week. Simple, comfortable, mine. My best friend at the station was a guy named Danny Reyes. Danny and his wife Carmen had come to Tennessee from Guatemala 15 years ago, with nothing but 2 suitcases and enough stubbornness to build a life from scratch. Danny started as a janitor at the fire station, got inspired, went through the academy, and ended up one of the best guys on our crew. Carmen ran a house cleaning business with about a dozen women, most of them from their church community. Between the two of them, they were raising 4 kids, sending the oldest to community college, and still managed to have dinner together every single night. Carmen cooked enough food to feed the entire block and always sent Danny to work with extra containers for me. Danny was the one who noticed something was off before I did. We were in the truck heading back from a call, a grease fire at a restaurant on 4th Street. Nothing major, and Danny said, "Hey brother, everything okay at home?" I told him, "Yeah, why?" He shrugged. Carmen saw Rachel at that new Italian place on Franklin. La Trattoria, the fancy one. Tuesday night. I laughed. Tuesday was taco night. Rachel hated Italian food. She said garlic gave her migraines. Danny didn't laugh back. She wasn't alone, Marcus. Carmen said she was with a man in a suit, sitting real close. I felt something cold slide down my spine, but I shook it off. Probably a coworker. Maybe a parent-teacher thing. Rachel was always meeting with parents about their kids. That night I got home around 8. Rachel was already in bed, which was unusual. She was normally up grading papers until 10. I kissed her forehead. She smelled like perfume I didn't recognize. Not the vanilla one I bought her every Christmas. Something sharper. Expensive. I told myself I was being paranoid. The next Tuesday I told Rachel I was pulling a double shift. Instead, I parked my truck 2 blocks from La Trattoria and walked. Through the window, I could see the whole dining room. And there she was. My wife. Sitting across from a man I recognized, Dr. Nathan Caldwell, the principal at her school. He was 48, recently divorced, drove a black Mercedes, and had the kind of tan you get from a salon, not from working outside. He was leaning across the table, holding both of Rachel's hands. She was laughing. Not the polite laugh she did at my jokes, the real one. The one I thought was mine. I didn't go inside. I sat in my truck for 45 minutes, hands shaking so badly I couldn't put the key in the ignition. When I finally drove home, I threw up in the driveway. Then I sat on the garage floor, staring at the tool rack I'd built with lumber Rachel helped me pick out, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my father's funeral. I didn't confront her that night. I needed proof. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective. I checked the phone bill, dozens of calls and texts to the same number. I checked our joint credit card charges at restaurants, a hotel in Gatlinburg, a jewelry store I'd never heard of, $600 at a place called Belle Epoque Lingerie. I'd never seen any lingerie from Belle Epoque. She sure as hell wasn't wearing it for me. When I finally confronted her, I did it calmly. put the credit card statements on the kitchen table like a deck of cards. Rachel stared at them for a long time. I expected tears, begging, excuses. Instead, she straightened up and said, "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie to you, Marcus. Yes, Nathan and I have been seeing each other. I remember the kitchen clock ticking, the refrigerator humming, the sound of absolutely everything normal while my world split in half. How long? I asked. 7 months. 7 months. That meant it started right after the school district's holiday gala. The one she insisted I didn't need to attend because it would be boring. The one she came home from at 2 in the morning with her hair different than when she left. I love him, Marcus, she said, not crying, not apologizing, just stating it like a weather report. Nathan understands me in ways you never did. He reads. He travels. He talks about things beyond football scores and hose pressure. I've spent 8 years in this house watching you come home smelling like smoke, and I'm tired of it. I deserve more. I stood there, and for a second I thought about every single time I'd dragged someone out of a burning building. The way they'd grab onto me, desperate, trusting me to save them. My own wife was standing 6 feet away, and she looked at me like I was the fire she needed to escape from. Then go, I said. I already packed a bag. I'm staying at Nathan's tonight. We can talk about the house and everything else later. She walked out, didn't look back. The door clicked shut, and I stood in that kitchen for I don't know how long. Then I opened a beer, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall until the sun came up. The divorce was ugly. Rachel's new boyfriend had money and connections. Nathan hired her a lawyer from Nashville who charged more per hour than I made in a day. They went after the house, claiming Rachel had contributed equally because she'd paid for the new kitchen countertops granite, which she'd picked out and I'd installed myself over 3 weekends. They wanted me to buy out her half at market value, which I couldn't afford. When the bank appraised the house at $210,000, way over what we'd paid, I was staring at a bill I couldn't cover. Meanwhile, Rachel had already moved into Nathan's 4-bedroom colonial in the nice part of town. The one with the pool and the 3-car garage. She'd posted photos on social media, new haircut, new clothes, weekends in Asheville, dinners at places where the menu doesn't have prices. I made the mistake of looking once. She was wearing a diamond necklace in one photo. I'd given her a silver chain for our 5th anniversary, and she'd said she loved it. I guess love has a price upgrade. I scraped together everything I had. Sold my boat, the little base boat my dad left me, for $3,000. Sold my weight set, my hunting rifles, even my spare turnout gear. Combined with what little savings Rachel hadn't touched, I managed to keep the house. Barely. I was eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for 3 months straight. Danny and Carmen wouldn't let that last. Carmen started showing up at my door with containers of food, pupusas, tamales, arroz con polo, and refusing to leave until I ate. "You look like a sad skeleton," Carmen would say, hands on her hips. "Eat before I call your mother." Danny dragged me out of the house on my days off. Fishing, basketball at the Y, helping him coach his son's Little League team. One Saturday, Carmen cornered me at their kitchen table. "Marcus, I know a very nice girl from our church, Rosa. She's a dental hygienist. Very pretty. Good teeth, obviously." I told Carmen I wasn't ready. She waved me off. Men are never ready. That's why women decide for them. Danny just shrugged from behind his wife. "Don't look at me, brother. I learned 20 years ago Carmen is always right." A year and a half after the divorce, I was getting back on my feet. Not thriving, but surviving. I'd picked up extra shifts at the station, did some side work with Danny helping Carmen's cleaning crew move heavy furniture, and started fixing up the house to keep my mind busy. I'd ripped out everything Rachel had chosen, the curtains, the bathroom tiles, even the kitchen countertops she'd fought over in court. I replaced them with whatever I could afford. The house looked rough, but it was mine. I'd heard through the grapevine that Rachel and Nathan were engaged. Carmen, whose cleaning crews worked in half the nice houses in Cedar Falls, had better intelligence than the FBI. "My girls say doctor. Caldwell is very controlling," Carmen reported one evening, stirring a pot of black beans. "He checks Rachel's phone. He doesn't like her going out with friends. One of my girls heard them fighting about money. He makes her ask permission to buy anything over $50. She paused. "Also, he's cheap. Never tips. Not even at Christmas." Danny whistled. "That's cold." Carmen nodded. "The devil wears a nice suit, but he's still the devil." I won't pretend I didn't feel some satisfaction hearing that. I'm not proud of it, but I'm human. Everything changed on a Saturday morning in October. Our station got called out to a structure fire at a farmhouse about 20 minutes outside town. Old wooden building, dry conditions, flames already through the roof when we arrived. The family was out, a couple in their 70s, but the wife was screaming that her husband had gone back inside to get their dog. Captain sent me and Danny in. We found the old man on the second floor, unconscious, smoke everywhere, the dog tucked under his arm. Danny grabbed the dog, I grabbed the man, and we got out just before the staircase collapsed behind us. The paramedics took over. I sat on the bumper of the engine, coughing, drinking water, and I noticed one of the paramedics, a woman, maybe late 20s, dark hair pulled back, moving fast and calm. She had the old man stabilized and an IV in his arm before the ambulance even arrived. She barked orders at her partner like a drill sergeant, but her hands on the patient were gentle. Her name tag said Gutierrez. After the ambulance left, I found her restocking her kit by the medic unit. "That was impressive work," I said. She barely looked up. "That's my job." She snapped her kit shut and finally met my eyes. "Nice work yourself, getting him out. Most guys would have waited for a second team." I shrugged. "Most guys don't have a Danny Reyes watching their back." She almost smiled. Almost. Her name was Elena Gutierrez. I learned this not from her, she drove off without another word, but from Carmen, who had her complete biography within 24 hours. Elena was 31, born in Cedar Falls. Her parents had immigrated from El Salvador. Her father worked construction until his back gave out. Her mother cleaned offices until she passed from cancer when Elena was 16. Elena had put herself through paramedic school while working nights at a gas station. She lived in a small apartment on the east side, drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic, went to Mass at St. Joseph's, and had been single for 2 years. "She's tough, that one," Carmen said approvingly. "Not like these soft girls who cry when they break a nail. Elena pulls people out of car wrecks and doesn't even mess up her ponytail." I showed up at St. Joseph's the next Sunday. Stood in the back, feeling like an idiot. After Mass, Elena spotted me in the parking lot. She crossed her arms. "You don't strike me as the church-going type, firefighter. I'm trying new things. Like stalking? Like showing up somewhere I might run into a paramedic who won't give me her phone number." She stared at me for a long beat. Then she pulled a pen from her jacket, grabbed my hand, and wrote her number on my palm. "Call me before that washes off. I'm not writing it twice." Dating Elena was nothing like dating Rachel. Elena didn't care about fancy restaurants. Our first date was tacos from a food truck, eating in my truck because it started raining. She told me about her father, now in a nursing home, who she visited every Sunday after church. She told me about the time she'd performed CPR on a man for 22 minutes straight on the side of I-40 until the helicopter arrived. "He made it," she said, taking a bite of her taco. "Sent me a Christmas card that year. That's better than any paycheck." Elena was practical in ways that amazed me. When she came to my house for the first time, she didn't comment on the mismatched tiles or the crooked cabinet doors. She opened the cabinet under the sink, looked at the pipes, and said, "Your P-trap is leaking. You got a wrench?" Within an hour, she'd fixed the plumbing, adjusted the cabinet hinges, and identified 3 electrical outlets that weren't up to code. "My dad taught me," she said when I stared. "When you can't afford to hire someone, you learn to do it yourself." We'd been together about 4 months when Elena moved in. She insisted on paying half of everything. "I've never taken a free ride in my life, and I'm not starting now," she said, carrying boxes up the porch steps while I struggled to keep up. Carmen and Danny helped us move. Carmen pulled me aside in the kitchen. "This one is good, Marcus. Don't mess it up." Then she handed me a container of enchiladas and went back to directing Danny where to put furniture. Life was good again. Different than before, quieter, steadier, like a fire that gives off heat without burning anything down. Then Cedar Falls got hit by the floods. 3 straight days of rain in March turned the river into a monster. Half the downtown was underwater. Every emergency crew in the county was mobilized. Our station worked 72 hours straight evacuations, water rescues, structural collapses. On the second night, we got a call about a family trapped in a car on Route 9, where the road had washed out. Danny and I took the rescue boat. The water was moving fast, full of debris. We found the car a minivan, half submerged, with a woman and 2 kids inside, the youngest maybe 3 years old. The current was pulling the van toward the bridge. Danny and I got to them, pulled the kids out first, then the mother. The little one wasn't breathing. I did CPR in the boat while Danny fought the current to get us to shore. The kid coughed up water and started crying, the most beautiful sound I ever heard. The floods also destroyed Nathan Caldwell's fancy colonial house. Water came up through the basement, buckled the floors, ruined everything on the first level. Insurance was a nightmare, turns out. Nathan had cut costs by going with a discount provider that found every excuse not to pay. The school district, already struggling with budget cuts, started laying off administrators. Nathan, who'd made enemies with his controlling management style, was one of the first to go. Within 2 months, he'd burned through his savings trying to fix the house, lost his job, and started drinking heavily. Rachel, according to Carmen's network, was miserable. "She sits in that damaged house by herself most nights," Carmen reported. "Dr. Caldwell goes to the bar and doesn't come back until 2 in the morning. Sometimes he doesn't come back at all. Carmen paused. My girls say she cries a lot. I waited for the satisfaction to come. It didn't. I just felt tired. 6 months after the floods, I came home from a shift and found Rachel sitting on my front steps. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight. Too much weight. Her hair was unwashed, pulled into a messy knot. The diamond necklace was gone. She was wearing a sweatshirt. I recognized it was one of mine, from before the divorce. She must have taken it when she left. Hi, Marcus. Rachel. Can we talk? I leaned against the porch railing. So talk. Nathan left. Moved to Charlotte last week. Cleaned out the checking account before he went. I got an email. She let out a laugh that had no humor in it. 8 months of engagement, and he broke it off in an email. Didn't even call. Sorry to hear that, I said. And part of me meant it. The other part remembered her saying I should have tried harder. The house is in foreclosure. Nathan stopped paying the mortgage 3 months ago and didn't tell me. I found out when the bank showed up. She wiped her eyes. I lost my job too. They cut 4 teaching positions after the flood damage to the school. Last hired, first fired. Sounds rough. Marcus, I need help. I don't have anywhere to go. My parents moved to Florida 2 years ago and they don't have room. My sister hasn't spoken to me since the divorce. She always liked you better. Rachel looked up at me. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything. I know what I did. But I'm desperate. I stood there, and I thought about that night in the kitchen when she'd told me I wasn't enough. I thought about eating peanut butter sandwiches for 3 months. I thought about selling my father's boat. I thought about every single night I'd spent alone in that house, staring at walls she'd painted, sitting on a couch we'd picked out together. Rachel, I'm going to be honest with you. I spent a long time being angry. Then I spent a long time being sad. Now I'm neither. I just don't feel anything when I look at you, and that's worse than both. I understand, she whispered. No, I don't think you do. You didn't just cheat on me, Rachel. You looked at everything we built 8 years, this house, our life, and you said it wasn't enough. You said I wasn't enough. You traded me in for a guy with a nicer car and a bigger house, and when that fell apart, you came back to the one you threw away. That's not love. That's shopping. Rachel flinched, but she didn't argue. That, more than anything, told me she knew I was right. Elena came home an hour later. She found Rachel still on the porch and me in the kitchen. She assessed the situation the way she assessed a trauma scene, calm, quick, decisive. She sat down with Rachel, listened to her story, checked her blood pressure because Rachel looked like she hadn't eaten in days, and then came to find me. She needs help, Marcus. She's not my problem anymore. I know, but she's a human being sitting on our porch with nowhere to go. You're too good for this world, Elena, and you're too stubborn for it. She can sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow we figure out something. She told me she'd never leave me either, you know, right before she left me. Elena took my face in both hands. Marcus, I'm not her, and you know that. One night on the couch isn't going to change what we have. But sending a woman with nothing to the street in the dark, that changes who you are. I hated that she was right. Carmen naturally had the same opinion, and expressed it more loudly during a phone call that lasted 40 minutes. Danny stayed quiet in the background, which was his survival strategy whenever Carmen had a position on something, which was always. Rachel stayed one night. Then, because Carmen and Elena were apparently running a charity I didn't sign up for, Carmen found Rachel a job on one of her cleaning crews. Elena found Rachel a room to rent from an elderly widow at their church, who needed help around the house in exchange for reduced rent. Within a week, Rachel was out of our house and into something stable. She came by once to thank me. I told her to thank Elena and Carmen. I was ready to call you a cab to the shelter. I know, Rachel said. That's probably what I deserved. Probably. But Elena doesn't deal in what people deserve. She deals in what people need. Rachel started her new life, cleaning houses, helping the widow, keeping her head down. I heard she started volunteering at the elementary school library since she couldn't get a teaching position. Carmen kept me updated whether I wanted it or not. She's different now, Carmen said one evening. Quieter. She goes to church. I just nodded. Rachel's redemption story wasn't my business anymore. My story was with Elena, in our house, with our life. The real surprise came 8 months later. I was in the kitchen on a Sunday morning making eggs when someone knocked on the door. Elena answered it. I heard voices, a woman's, crisp and formal, and then a man's, deep and gravelly. Elena called me over. Standing on my porch were Henry and Doris Mitchell. It took me a moment. Then it clicked, the minivan on Route 9. The mother and 2 kids we'd pulled from the floodwater. The little boy who'd stopped breathing. Doris grabbed me before I could say a word. She hugged me so hard my ribs creaked. I've been looking for you for months, she said, tears streaming. The county wouldn't release names of the rescue crews. I had to go through 6 departments to find you. Henry Mitchell didn't hug me. He shook my hand with a grip that meant business. Henry, it turned out, owned Mitchell & Sons, one of the largest construction and property development companies in East Tennessee. He was 64, built like a man who'd started his career swinging a hammer and never fully stopped. Doris was a retired nurse. "Sit down, young man," Henry said, taking a seat at my kitchen table like he owned it. He pulled a folder from his jacket. "That night on Route 9, you pulled my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren out of that water. My grandson Liam stopped breathing. You brought him back. Do you understand what that means to me?" "I was doing my job, sir." "Your job." Henry stared at me. "Son, I've built shopping centers, hospitals, office buildings in 4 states. I've closed deals worth tens of millions of dollars. None of it, not one single brick, means a damn thing compared to my grandson taking his next breath. You gave that to me. So here's what's going to happen." He opened the folder. "I need a facilities and safety director for Mitchell & Sons. Someone who knows buildings, knows fire codes, knows how to keep people alive. The salary is $145,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a company truck. You start whenever you're ready." He slid another paper across the table. "This is the title for your house. Paid in full. Don't argue with me. I bought the mortgage from the bank this morning. Consider it a signing bonus." I stared at the papers. Elena stood behind me, her hand on my shoulder. "I also hear you've got a friend," Henry continued. "Danny Reyes. Good man, he was in that boat with you. I need a site safety coordinator. Same benefits package. And Doris tells me his wife runs a cleaning business?" Carmen was about to get the contract for every Mitchell & Sons property in East Tennessee. "Mr. Mitchell, this is—" "Don't say too much," Henry cut me off. "And it's Henry. Mr. Mitchell was my father. One more thing." He looked at Elena. "Doris tells me you're a paramedic. We're building a new urgent care clinic in Maryville. I need someone to run the emergency response training program. If you're interested, the job's yours." Elena squeezed my shoulder. I could feel her hand trembling. Doris leaned over and whispered to Elena, "Don't bother fighting him, dear. I've been married to this man for 41 years. Once Henry decides to pay a debt, you just say thank you and hold on." Henry stood up, buttoned his jacket, and looked around the kitchen. "Nice house. Good bones. I can see it's been cared for by someone who gives a damn." He shook my hand again. "Welcome aboard, son." After they left, Elena and I sat at the kitchen table in silence for a long time. Then she started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. I just held her hand and stared at the deed to our house, sitting on the table next to the cold eggs. Danny's reaction when I told him was to stare at me for 10 seconds, then say, "Carmen is going to lose her mind." He was right. Carmen screamed so loud on the phone that Danny held it at arm's length. Then she started making plans for a celebration dinner that somehow turned into a block party. Elena and I got married that fall, small ceremony at St. Joseph's. Carmen organized the reception at the community center, which was not small. Danny was my best man. Henry and Doris sat in the front row. Henry cried during the vows, which shocked everyone who knew him. "Allergies," he growled, when Doris handed him a tissue. Rachel sent a card, simple, handwritten. It said, "You deserved better than what I gave you. I'm glad you found it. Be happy." I put the card in a drawer, not in the trash, not on the fridge, just in a drawer. Elena is asleep beside me right now as I tell you this. 6 months pregnant with our first kid. She snores, which she denies violently. Our house is warm, the roof doesn't leak anymore, and there's a casserole from Carmen in the fridge. Danny and I start our new jobs on Monday. Sometimes I think about that night on Route 9, fighting the current with a dying kid in my arms, Danny yelling at me to hold on, the water trying to take everything. And I think life is a lot like that. It tries to pull you under. It takes things you love. It breaks you in places you didn't know could break. But if you've got someone in the boat with you, someone who won't let go, you make it to shore. I made it to shore.